And we're back. Theater Tulsa's latest production makes it look easy, but it's a horse of a different color when you get right down to it. Our guests today are Jarrod Kopp and Erin Scarberry. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Let's first start right here. What is your role?
I'm the director of the show.
And the show is?
The Great Gatsby.
And you are what?
I'm the board president of Theater Tulsa.
So we got the heavyweights here.
You could say that.
When does it open?
We open on November 13th and run through the 22nd at the Tulsa Performing Arts Center.
You know that theater folk are superstitious.
It's true.
Yes.
Do it bother you that it's on the 13th?
It has come up, and it has definitely been a joke that we've had in rehearsals, but we're feeling pretty good about it.
Fortunately, it's not one of the theater superstitions.
Oh, yeah, there you go. I like that. Well, just to give you an idea, most folks may not know this, but in theater, where they keep a light on the stage all night, it's called the ghost light.
Right.
Yeah, I rest my case. But I love the tradition, I really do. I think it's wonderful. A little bit about the theater itself. How old is
Theater Tulsa is currently in its 93rd season.
Is that a fact?
Yes.
How did it start?
Well, it started in 1922 when a couple of women who had come here from, I believe it was Boston. They'd moved here to Tulsa, part of the oil capital. They decided that Tulsa needed a community theater of its own. It didn't have one at the time. And so they formed the original group. Back then, that theater would perform around town in different locations, sometimes even in a tent. They'd put up a big, almost like a circus tent, and do a show in there. It was about 10 years before they were able to get an actual building, an actual theater building built up and with that capital expense. And they've been, it's interesting, Theater Tulsa has been kind of a survivor. There was a period around the Great Depression when they were able to get the building going, but they were almost foreclosed upon by the bank.
Really?
But they did survive that thanks to the donors of the time. During World War II, they took a few hits, but they managed to survive by performing in veterans hospitals and found new audiences that way. And in fact, they had a hard time in the early 2000s, in about 3 years ago, in which Theater Tulsa was about to close its doors permanently, and we had an influx of new leadership that came onto the board, and were able to turn it around completely.
And you know what's intriguing, the more you learn about Theater Tulsa, the more you realize the story parallels theaters all over the United States. The fight to survive. And that continues, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, that's very true. And in fact, we're seeing it now. There's been, since we had the new leadership that's come in and turned the theater around, there's still a struggle with trying to regain things like grants funding, sponsorships. Corporate sponsorships used to be a lot more a lot more plentiful than they are today. There's been a lot of cutbacks in that department as well.
Sure.
And of course with the audiences as well. There was a time when Theater Tulsa had about 7,000 or 8,000 subscribers. This was in the 50s and 60s when you could either go to the movies or maybe you had a TV, maybe you didn't. But now we're competing with not only movies and TV, but also huge concerts, social media, video games. There's all sorts of things as we're trying to grow a new generation of audiences that we're having to compete with.
I'm reminded of somebody in my college days, long before you children were born, but I recall the talk of the Baird used to perform. They used to perform Shakespeare outdoors. It was very common. Of course, that wouldn't necessarily work here. You open your mouth to say something and in goes a fly.
Right. Well, actually, Theater Tulsa just launched a Shakespeare in the Park production this summer. It was called Bard and the Brady.
Yeah.
And it was our downtown urban take on Shakespeare in the Park. We performed it at the Guthrie Green this summer. It was in June. And in fact, it was free to the public. We did it kind of as a gift to Tulsa. We did 12th night for a weekend. Oh my. And it was anyone who came down to the Guthrie could get a free show as soon as the sun set. Or as the sun was setting.
As the sun, God, I'm so sorry I missed it. I really am, but I'm kind of.
Well, we'll be doing it again next summer, so.
Let me know.
Be sure to check it out.
We'll have you guys in and publicize it, and we'll also show up.
Great.
Let's talk about the production. I'm familiar with the book. I'm familiar with the motion picture. Is the stage play relatively new?
It is. It hasn't been performed a lot across the country. It's the only play, a version of the story that has been approved by the Fitzgerald estate. It's pretty drawn straight from the novel. All of the dialogue comes straight from the novel. And it's a fantastic representation of the story on the stage.
As I recall from the book, there's a great deal of dialogue. That's going to be tough on the actors.
It is. It's always that way for performers. They're pretty versed in memorization, and it's just part of the deal for them. They've done a really fantastic job. I actually was really fortunate with this project. I had a set of actors who are super talented and incredibly committed to the project, and most of them came into it off book from the beginning. So we've had a lot of time to really work and play with the nuances of the script and develop a lot of detail in their performances.
You've also, on your resume would have listed plays that you've acted in, would you not?
I started as a performer. I've always loved participating in theater in that way, and I fell in love with it as an actor. I still make an effort to be on stage once a season if I can.
So that makes it easier for you to work then with the actors, knowing what they go through.
I think it does.
Yeah.
It gives you a better understanding of what it's like for them, and how to communicate with them and make them understand what it is that you need from them and how to perform.
Well, let's talk about the story itself for those perhaps not familiar with it. What should one walk away from this classic feeling or knowing about the main character?
Well, it's tough to say who the main character is. The story is centered around Gatsby, Jay Gatsby, but the narrator of the story, Nick Carraway, is, in my opinion, is the main character of the story. It's all told through his eyes. The book is told from his perspective and his representation of all of the characters. It's a classic representation of American 1920s, looking at what the culture was like at that time.
Flappers and all that.
Yes,
Yeah.
all of the big parties. It's a visual feast. There's so many beautiful costumes and dancing and great scene work with really fantastic performers. It's a wonderful, wonderful piece to see.
Well, the moment you said it, costumes, I recall in just the motion picture version, the costumes were outstanding.
Beautiful.
You were able to...
Theater Tulsa has one of the best costumers in,
Really?
in the city. Meg Ferguson has spent a lot of time building for the show. She's got a lot of original costumes in the piece. It's really important because it's The Great Gatsby that visually it's a beautiful thing to look at. That's
Certainly.
what people are going to expect. Everyone's familiar with it from the novel or the films. And so it's a challenge in that sense to make sure that they're going to be coming to the theater and you're going to meet their expectations.
You know, over the years, I've talked to a number of directors, and I have to tell you, some of them have been real dullards. You're not.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm really, you got me looking forward to this production, which has to make it easier for you as board president and a board to garner support for her work.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we feel like The Great Gatsby was a really strong choice for the season in that it is a classic title that a lot of people know. And that it will have a lot of draw that people would want to see either the story that they loved or to be able to experience it in a new way that maybe they haven't been able to just through the novel.
It's an interesting period in America too.
It is.
In reading the book, you know, I mean, one can almost close your eyes and you're there. The way that thing comes out and comes screaming at you, you can almost smell the smoke in the air. I mean, it's just, it's so real.
Absolutely. The words, his imagery is so beautiful. And it's a completely different thing to have it live and standing in front of you on stage every night. You can't get the immediacy of that, of the characters, if you love the story and have always been a fan of the novel. It's a completely different thing to see it on stage in front of you than watching it on a film.
Okay, I'm excited. I got to be there for this one. It's going to be at the PAC?
That's right. It'll be at the PAC starting next weekend. It opens November 13th, Friday the 13th, and it runs through November 22nd.
And how much are tickets?
Tickets are, that's a very good question. They're about 25.
I'm not
30.
entirely certain. I know they can get them by going to www.myticketoffice.com.
All right.
Yes.
Hey, thank you guys for coming in. It means a lot to us to be able to help you in any way we can. And you can count on me being there. I want to see this production, and especially want to see how you handle the narrator. I'm really looking forward to that. Thanks again.
Thank you.
We're all out of time, and we'll see you back for the next edition of Perspectives. I'm Sam Jones. Thank you for joining us.